everybody. I'd like to welcome you tonight to this council meeting of Tuesday, the 18th of June 2024, here at the Euroa Community Conference Centre. I'm Peter Stevenson, Administrator of Strathbogie Shire Council, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Firstly, though, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the places we live, work and play. We recognise and respect the enduring relationship they have with their lands and waters, and we pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Today we are meeting on the lands of the Tongarong peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, whose sovereignty here has never been ceded. Really? Okay. This public meeting is being streamed live via our website and made available for public access on our website, along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in Section 9(2) of the Local Government Act 2020, and these principles are numbered 1 to 9 on page 2 of the agenda. We welcome the people in our public gallery and also those viewing this meeting through our live stream via our website. This meeting is being held in accordance with Strathbogie Shire's governance rules. If we have technical difficulties during today's meeting, which means we are unable to stream the proceedings to the public, we will continue with the meeting given the public gallery is open. If an officer has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure they have done so. The person will then be contacted to rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and the vote concluded. And we have a couple of apologies tonight. We have an apology from Rachel Frampton, the Director Community and Planning, and Braden Aiken, who's Acting Director Community and Planning, one on leave and the one well in place. Yeah. Do we have any conflicts of interest, CEO? No?
No, thank you. Through you, Chair, no conflicts of interest yet.
Thank you. Okay, confirmation of minutes decisions of the ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday the 21st of May and the extraordinary meeting held on Tuesday the 4th of June 2024. I will move that the recommendation becomes a resolution and is as such carried. We have no petitions. I have a short report, well, a bit longer than a short one, but I'll commence at the extraordinary meeting last week. I did read out a statement, an acknowledgement of the passing of Alistair Thompson, a former councillor with Strathbogie Shire Council from 2016 to 2020 and a member of the Audit and Risk Committee. A celebration of Alistair's life was held in Melbourne last week with CEO Julie Solomon representing Strathbogie Shire Council. Thank you to everyone who has reached out to Council to express their condolences. His impact was far-reaching and we're deeply saddened by his passing. On behalf of the Strathbogie community, we extend our heartfelt condolences to Alistair's family and friends. And personally, working alongside Alistair on the Audit and Risk Committee was a privilege. His contributions, expertise, kindness and unwavering commitment to good governance were valued and respected. He will be greatly missed. Vale Alistair Thompson, rest in peace. Well, I'm quite comfortable. Well, okay. I'm not suggesting that that it's not a good idea to recognise, but we can't guarantee that people won't continue to walk in. But I'm happy if people want to remain seated and silent for a short period. And I think we'll move on now. With Alistair's passing, that means we now have a vacancy for an independent community member on the Audit and Risk Committee. We anticipate that role will be advertised shortly. Now on to some more positive news, if we might. It gives me great pleasure to congratulate Strathbogie Shire Council as one of 10 councils to receive the Magaley Award from Reconciliation Victoria during Reconciliation Week. The award acknowledges the Memorandum of Understanding between the Tongarong Land and Waters Council and Strathbogie Shire Council. Congratulations to everyone involved, and particularly to those who were councillors at the time that the memorandum was signed, and to the staff team that supported that. It really is a significant achievement, and it does mean a lot to receive this recognition. Now, I'm pleased to advise that the Nagambie-Loxley Road was sealed today and will reopen to traffic tomorrow morning, Wednesday, 19th of June 2024. And that is great news. That's great news for everybody who travels that journey, including myself, who forgot it was closed last time I was in Nagambie. Okay, so the Greening Euroa Cup. Last month's council meeting, I provided an update to the community on the Greening Euroa project, and since then the second Greening Euroa Standpipe Cup was held. And while I wasn't able to attend in person, council staff were on hand to present the cup, with Mansfield claiming victory in the football and Euroa taking out the netball trophy. Goulburn Valley Water partnered with Strathbogie Shire and the Goulburn Valley League to deliver the Cup initiative. And this is a great way to raise awareness of the initiative to use reclaimed water to keep our sports fields green. Well done to everyone involved, and congratulations to the winners. Now, power supply advocacy has been one of the things that we've talked about a bit for a while now. On that note, today I met with Federal Member for Nichols Sam Birrell MP, along with our CEO Julie, to discuss the power supply challenges in our area. And I would like to extend my thanks to Sam for his interest in this important issue. Now, for those of you interested in our advocacy for Kerwin's Bridge, you'll be pleased to know that we also discussed how to harness the necessary funding to fund the works required to get that bridge open, and we'll keep that dialogue open. I'm also very pleased to see that SP AusNet is hosting a number of forums this week about power supply and upgrades along the Benalla-Euroa line. And I'd also like to extend my thanks to Helen Haynes, Independent Federal Member for Indi, for her work raising this with SP AusNet as well. This is a great example of community council and parliamentary representatives working in partnership with a united voice to get results. Now, with elections coming up in October, with that in mind, last week Strathbogie Shire hosted a Municipal Association of Victoria Stand for Council regional session here in this chamber. I was very honoured to join the panel discussion and share my thoughts and perspectives on the sorts of things potential candidates should consider before standing. Being a councillor can be really exciting, with lots of opportunities to make a positive impact on the community. The role also comes with great responsibility and significant legislative requirements. It is important that potential candidates understand what's involved before they sign up, and that was a big part of why we had those sessions. Anyone interested in standing can find out more on Council's website at www.strathbogie.vic.gov.au/elections. Finally, this will be our last ordinary council meeting before CEO Julie Sullivan finishes up with council. Julie will still have one last meeting next week, so I'll save my final farewells for then. But I do want to acknowledge the significant contribution she's made to the organisation and the community. Julie, your leadership, guidance and professionalism have been pivotal in steering the organisation and the community since you joined Strathbogie in January 2020. You've had your fair share of challenges in that time, a global pandemic, major floods and storms, not to mention the many infrastructure and other challenges of a large rural council with a small rate base. You also navigated the difficulties of behaviour amongst the former councillor group, the appointment of a municipal monitor, not once, twice, but 3 times, the suspension of the councillors and the appointment of an administrator. Your focus on good governance and on providing stability and leadership throughout these challenges is a testament to your professionalism and to your enduring spirit of collaboration. And you've been a great advocate for the community and have always put the interest of the community first with a strong focus on transparency and community engagement. And I see that every day that I'm here. Thank you, Julie, and all the best for your future endeavours wherever they take you, whether it's roving or any other R word. We'll have more to say next meeting. Okay, there have been 3 submitters of questions for presentation to tonight's meeting, and another community member has requested a statement be read, or has requested us to read a statement. Marie, Marie's here. Okay, our first submitter of questions is Christine Antonis of Euroa. I hope I pronounced that properly. It was present tonight and will present her question. So, Christina, if you want to come up to... Oh, yeah, okay.
Push the button for me. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I did a very brief one in the on the internet, but on 2 previous occasions, being the 25th of October 23 and the 12th of December 23, I forwarded a letter to the council. To date, I had not received a reply from a payment reminder on April the 24th. To this, I do find this rude and arrogant, considering the fact that we, the residents, pay the remuneration and expenses of yourself and your employees. Following the request in my aforementioned letter, I would like to ask you to produce. This was the second letter written on the 5th of May that I didn't receive anything for. A signed contract for the supposed services being delivered within the pricing clearly listed by your company, and your financial services licence number if there is an intention of charging interest by your company. All this is required under corporate law, and as the Strathbogie Council is an incorporated body, a contract is required between yourself and your residents. If you expect us to uphold the laws and conventions of society, then it is also required that you set an example.
Okay.
So my letters were not answered, and I also sent something to the CEO earlier in May, and that was not answered either.
Okay. Well,
so I would appreciate an answer. Do you want me to reiterate the first letter that I sent regarding the thing on the rate notice?
No. Thank you for questioning, Christine. And look, I'd like to sincerely apologise for you not getting responses in a reasonable time. It's not good enough. I have referred the matter to Council's Director, People and Governance, who will ensure that a response is provided to you this week. And there is a fact sheet
I've
on the
seen that
table?
fact sheet. I'm sorry, I've seen that fact
Okay,
sheet.
well,
And it does not apply because I have other evidence to say
okay, well,
other things.
I'm not going to debate the
No, you don't have to debate it with me. I can
legitimacy of local government here with you tonight and whether we can
Yes.
charge a rate.
I have seen that, but I'm sorry, I have other evidence to prove that it's not right.
Okay, well,
Okay.
yeah, you'll get a response, but
Thank you.
probably that's where we need to leave it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And our second submitted tonight is Lynette Lowson of Longwood. Lynette is present tonight, but you're going to read it.
I'll read it. Oh, yeah, no, you read it if you like.
Okay. So she's asked that her questions be read on behalf, and her questions are: one, as Section 74A of the Victorian Constitution is unlawful, and so too is the Local Government Act 1989, due to them being repugnant to the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1901 and the Crown being removed on the 1st of January 2004, full stop. Where do you get your authority from to impose laws and charge fees and taxes? And question two, when checking your ABN, and for the record, the number given here is 508827811013. When checking your ABN status, it clearly states that you are a Department of State of the Commonwealth or Parliament established under the Parliamentary Service Act 1999. Who gives you the authority to charge taxes clearly repugnant to the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1901? So thank you for your question. While I appreciate and acknowledge the position that the state government is not formally constituted or is unlawful, I respectfully do not agree. Council is a legally recognised tier of government, both at the state and federal level. Local government is legally valid, having been constituted by an act of the Victorian Parliament. There is no obstacle in the Commonwealth Constitution to prevent state parliaments from legislating to create, empower and regulate local government. All states have done so. The Victorian Constitution includes explicit recognition of local government. Section 74B gives Parliament the right to make laws for and in relation to local government. Through the Local Government Act 1989, Part 8, the Victorian Parliament has conferred upon local government the power to levy and collect property tax in the form of rates. Furthermore, the Local Government Act 2020 provides that councils are constituted by councillors democratically elected by the community for the purpose of providing good governance in its municipal district for the benefit and well-being of the municipal community. In the case currently at Strathbogie, I've been appointed by the Minister for Local Government to act and perform all functions of the councillors until the next council elections to be held on 26 October 2024. Council rates, as you indicate in your questions, are essentially taxes. Property values are used as the basis for calculating how much each property owner pays in rates. Rates are one of the main ways that councils get the required funding needed to deliver over 100 essential services and infrastructure to the community. And to put this into context, council collects just 3.6 cents of every dollar in taxes collected by all levels of government. And if we didn't collect rates or taxes, as you refer to them, or charge for services like planning fees, animal registration or parking fines for those who get them, who's going to collect your waste and provide transport stations, maintain and construct local roads and bridges, provide services like maternal and child health, kindergarten services for youth and our seniors, provide public libraries, provide and maintain public sporting and recreation facilities such as swimming pools, ovals, parks, gardens, playground and public halls, who'd undertake town planning related services, or provide local laws and animal control services, or clear fallen trees from the roadside following a storm event, or support economic development activity including tourism, community arts projects and festivals. Rates, or taxes as you describe them, are an important part of council's ability to fund and deliver essential community infrastructure and services. While local councils are not mentioned in the Australian Constitution, each state has a Local Government Act, a law, that provides the rules for the creation and operation of councils. And as such, council can perform any function and exercise any power conferred on them by the Act which creates them. And again, I'll refer to that fact sheet prepared by Local Government Victoria on the legitimacy of councils and rating powers for those who may be interested. So please collect one on your way out. Otherwise, the fact sheets on Local Government Victoria's website at legitimacy of councils and rating powers, PDF, localgovernment.vic.gov.au. But this link, forget about having to remember the link, it'll be included in council's minutes. So essentially, that is my brief response.
Is that
That's
so? I can take that,
Yeah,
and pursue
Indeed.
that. So I can't say anything now about anything you just said.
no,
That's fine. Okay,
thank you.
no worries.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should get an answer now because I'd like to know the answers as well.
I just gave her an answer.
That was the answer. That was the answer.
That fact sheet.
What I just spoke about, and we'll move on, please.
So we could write to you. So you be more in error. The United Nations.
Okay. Yeah.
We can write.
You can write, and then if you're not happy with the response, there's council has a complaints policy as well, and that'll explain the next steps as well. Now, our next submitter of questions is Tom Maher of Balmadam. Tom, he's asked that his questions be read. Is that right? Or you want to read us? Okay, you want to come up, Tom? You got to put yourself in the light. You wanted the light on. We've got to put yourself in under it.
Image. Go on, away you go.
All right. So Tom writes, it's a statement actually. Thank you, Julie, for acknowledging my questions over the years of your appointment as CEO of the Strathbogie Shire Council. Best wishes in your future endeavours and enjoy a relaxing break. That's the statement. And then there is a question to add on to that. Yeah, because he never just leaves it with a statement. That's just the entree.
Just before you go on, Mr. Administrator, the CEO being Julie Sullivan, she's the fourth CEO of the Shire of Strathbogie, 3 male CEOs and then a female CEO being the fourth. I at Violeton Shire at the time had the same instance. We had to employ a temporary CEO and it was a lady. And in doing so, we went ahead because the female side sees things in a way which local government should see, more so than perhaps some of the males, because the bulk of the community are made up of 50-50. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And yes, I'd support you in saying that for a long time we never had enough female CEOs and enough females in executive teams. And when you get a good balance of both genders in the workplace at that senior level, then you can get better decisions and better leadership. So
Mr.
thank you for that.
You've got to realise it's ladies then gentlemen.
Well, okay. Well, all right. Now, the question that you asked, Tom, was what parking areas are provided at the Euroa sale yards to accommodate the public car parking to attend the sales? So thank you for that question, Tom. The Euroa sale yards is crushed rock, hard stand areas to the east, southeast and northeast of the yards, which provides informal car parking for sale yard visitors and stock deliveries and collections. The grassed area to the northwest of the yards is the area the proposed truck wash will be built. So this facility should not restrict parking at the sales. There's also a grassed area south of the yards near the office that can be used for parking. However, this area is less often used due to its nature. And for most sales, these areas are sufficient for those that attend the cattle sales. However, Council is aware that at the recent special event horse sale held the previous weekend, the weekend just passed, there was an estimated 100 people in attendance with many vehicles towing horse trailers. It was observed that many of these sale attendees parked on the roadsides of the surrounding roads and streets around the sale yard site, as well as on the site itself. Now, while it's unusual that a crowd of such magnitude attends sales at this venue, but I've asked the Director of Sustainable Infrastructure to discuss the management of the car parking for these events with the Sale Yards Committee to ensure car parking is better managed for the special events in the future. Thanks again, Tom, for your
Just before I leave the seat of questions, the area which they do use is an arterial road run by Regional Roads Victoria. And using that area for parking and the area of the road being a regional road of Victoria, it confuses the corner location, it confuses the road users. And one sale there, which I note the vehicles were parked that tight. The sale yards of its day doesn't have the opportunity to provide the requirements of sale yards of today.
Okay.
Take Bendigo at Huntley,
Okay.
take Wangaratta, take even Barnawatha.
Okay.
and Greater Sydney Shire, but it
Tom,
doesn't comply today, unfortunately, for parking.
okay. Well,
Thank you very much.
we're taking it on board, and John's going to be having a look at that issue and discussing with the sale yards people how those issues can be addressed into the future. Now, Marie of Balmatam has also requested a statement be read or wants it read. Okay, do you want to come up to the hot seat? So, Marie writes, thank you, Julie, for your acknowledgement of my questions to the council in your role as CEO, especially making an apology from the Shire when an incident happened after a planning meeting when this was under the previous CEO. You took the time to listen to myself in the council meeting and showed me respect and empathy of what I had to deal with. I wish you all the very best and enjoy a lovely, relaxing holiday. So that's a very nice thought. But do you have some inside information? It's just a holiday. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, to the business. Did we have an urgent late question? Yeah. Yeah, so if there was a late one, then it's been answered. You're talking about Nagambie Loxley Road. Yeah. Okay. All right, so now we're going to reports. And we begin with the planning application, 11.1.1, all the ones, planning application P2023-121, use and development of land for domestic animal husbandry and caretaker's house at 222 Faithful Road, Longwood East. Director Tingay, may we have a summary of this report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you've mentioned, planning permit application number P20-2023-121 has been received for the use and development for land for domestic animal husbandry and a caretaker's house dwelling essentially at 222 Faithful Road in Longwood East. In the interests of good governance and transparency, officers consider a decision on this application be determined by council as one of the objectors, and the only objection received was by a member of council staff. The objection raised concerns about the potential for the proposed domestic animal husbandry to impact the objector's ongoing husbandry business and also being incompatible with the farming zone and the devaluing of the objector's property. The proposal was referred by our planning assessment officers to the relevant referral authorities with conditional consent provided by all referral authorities, aside from Agricultural Victoria, who did not respond. Following a thorough assessment by officers, officers are recommending refusal to this application. The grounds for refusal are listed on page 8 and 9 of the agenda, incorporated into the recommendation. A summary of those grounds for refusal include that the proposal has the potential to limit the operation and expansion of adjoining and nearby agricultural uses, and have potentially and have the potential to adversely impact nearby land due to dust, noise, and odour. There is a recommendation for consideration tonight on pages 8 and 9 of the agenda. However, we do have a submitter to the item.
Thanks, Director Tingay. And I know we've got Luke Michael, the applicant's planning consultant, online. He's requested to address the meeting. Thanks for your patience, Luke. And we'll allow you. We'll throw over to you. And what do we usually give? 5 minutes. Work with us on that, Luke.
Yeah, that works perfectly. Thanks so much for the introduction, and thank you, Peter, and thanks Strathbogie Shire Council for the opportunity to speak here. In recognition of the Council's officer's report or recommendation, we wanted to clarify and make a few points based off what had been said. Firstly, and for the avoidance of doubt, we reiterate that the application is for the use and associated works for a domestic animal husbandry and an associated caretaker's house. The use of the term dwelling and caretaker's house have been used interchangeably throughout the Council report, including identification of the use as a dwelling under the permit trigger, which is not what we applied for. A caretaker's house is sought, which, thanks for acknowledging that before, which, as we all know, is a separately defined use under the planning scheme and has a vastly moderated expectation of amenity. As supported by VCAT, a caretaker's house is not expected to receive a residential level of amenity given their role supporting alternative uses. And this is seen to a certain degree with the adjoining sites. We also add that a caretaker's house is a mandatory requirement of an animal boarding facility as required by the Code of Practice for the operation of boarding establishments. The officer's report refers to the lack of visual separation between the review site and the adjoining properties and contemplates including a visual and acoustic barrier between the subject and the adjoining site. Just checking you guys can see the screen that's shared right now. In fact, a solid steel 1.8 metre fence has been present on all boundaries of the site since 2018. The officer's report refers to a failure for the applicant to provide an acoustic report, which details any acoustic measures taken. At no point was an acoustic report sought by Council's officers, nor does it form an application requirement. We also note that during the issue of the RFI, Council did not raise any concerns with the proposal, with the exception of clarifying the on-site effluent treatment. Regardless, compliance with the noise control guidelines and code of practice for the operation of boarding establishments will be required as for any dog kennel. The existing 1.8 metre high steel fence will assist in this regard. The capacity also remains for acoustic attenuation consistent with the preceding guidelines to be installed within the proposed kennels themselves. At points within the report, Council officers note that both adjoining properties to the east and to the west are not operating under their restrictive permits or respective permits, which we consider misrepresents the character of the area. Firstly, the property at 15 Scooby Road may operate at a lower capacity than the 150 animals facilitated by their permit, however, make frequent use of their training runs and on-site kennel facilities for the large number of dogs they own/train. While the submitter whilst the submitter may rightfully consider the dogs they own as pets, they are still managing, breeding and training a large number of animals, which they term as an elite dog sled team, which carries certain land use definitions with that. It is further noted that the owner of this lot is also able to increase the number of animals on their lot to 150 without requiring additional planning permission, giving the permit awarded to the land. The adjoining property owned by our client at 222 Faithful Road to the east of the road is still in operation. Whilst the intensity of this use has reduced, greyhounds are still continually bred, trained and kept on this property. It is noted the relevant permit allowing this applies only to the title to the east of the review site. So despite this property and this property being owned by the same person, the title or the permit only applies to this title. So the above is to say that the immediate area is decidedly occupied by agricultural uses and is not primarily residential in nature or use. The immediate places of accommodation the immediate places of accommodation in this area are subject to reduced expectations of amenity given their nexus to their respective agricultural uses and their siting within a farming zone. The introduction of the least intensive of these three uses, we would say, would not further reduce amenity impacts beyond the existing conditions. In conclusion, we maintain that proposal is appropriate for the following reasons. Location of a use between two identical uses is an appropriate common sense and orderly planning outcome. The accommodation in the immediate surrounding area has equivalent amenity expectations, given they are all associated with their respective animal boarding facilities. Whilst there are a small number of dwellings within proximity to the west and south of the existing group of animal boarding facilities, the amenity of these dwellings will not be further reduced by the proposal, given the smaller nature of the proposal, and as they are all further separated from the proposed use than the existing dog kennel. The proposed use is consistent with the strategic guidelines of the farming zone by increasing the volume of productive agricultural land, as this land would otherwise sit unused. And we do consider that several material errors have been made when considering this application at the report stage, which we believe misrepresent the proposal. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Luke. Now, I did visit the site with the manager planning and economic development. I did visit the site, and I'm sympathetic to what was proposed there in terms of rehoming greyhounds, but I'm not swayed to grant a permit against the advice of officers at this point. And I do note that the applicants have the opportunity to have that decision reviewed at a later stage at VCAT. But I'm going to side with the recommendation of the planning team, and as such, the recommendations on page 8 and 9 become the resolution, and as such is carried. (11.1.2) is planning applications received and planning applications determined the 1st to the 30th of May 2024. Director Tingo, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As you will note in the report, another busy month for the Planning Department with 17 new planning permit applications received and 23 planning permit applications determined for the month of May. Our planning permit activity performance figures for April 2024, as May's data is not yet available at the time that the report was produced, is currently at 90.91%, a fabulous achievement for the team and us as a small rural council. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Tingo. The team is indeed working diligently. We move now to 11.2. Sorry, have I gone too far? Well, I've gone too far. Left. 11.2.1. It's getting number confusion here. Yes. Play and Open Space Strategy 2024 to 2034. And yes, sorry, Executive Manager Scott, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Sure. So this is a 10-year plan to guide the development and renewal of play and open spaces for council, for community groups and for developers across the Shire. It looks at the broad design and development principles for play and open space, for dog parks and for exercise stations. Broadly speaking, it has been developed following broad community engagement, which included a discussion with the community panel, some information on the Share Strathbogie Engagement Hub, social media, attendance at markets, and discussions with kindergarten and school-aged children, as well as our 12 to 21-year-old cohort through our youth team. Based on that feedback and also a very comprehensive technical review, a draft strategy has now been developed. It sets the direction for the future of play and open spaces in Strathbogie and what is needed to achieve this, including a prioritised 10-year capital investment plan. The report recommendation is on page 19, and it recommends releasing the draft for consultation with a report back to council at the August council meeting.
Thank you very much, Executive Manager Scott. Yeah, this is an important strategy. Now, most of what council does is strategic. Well, there's the operational stuff that every day, like the ducks in the pond and the feet just swimming along, and the trucks picking up the garbage and the trees getting pruned and all that sort of stuff. But all of that. But at another level, it's about strategy, and it's about that planning. And if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a plan, then you don't get to where you want to go. We've got assets and infrastructure plans. We've got open space plans. We've got, you name it, there's a plan, and this plan here is an important one as well. What it will do is direct council's investment for that 10-year period to make sure that what is delivered on the ground it matches the best practice that's happening everywhere else, that it's based on the community having a red-hot conversation with us about what should be there, and it's also based on standards which have been agreed around Australia and New Zealand, I expect, because they are Australian and New Zealand standards set. So, you know, this is like many of the other strategies that we have. It's very important to guide that work, and as was pointed out, there are 5 guiding principles here that link to the existing council plan, and I'd be surprised if they didn't continue to link to further council plans. So I think this is a great start. It should get out to the community for that consultation. It's not cast in stone. That consultation is there to make sure that we get it right. But it's I hope to be around. Well, I hope to be able to watch from afar when the next one's being delivered in 2034. Good work for the play and open space, for the team that worked on this play and open space strategy. They've got a bit more to do now with the consultation and finishing it off, but well done. So I'll move that the resolution, the recommendation on page 19 of the agenda in 2 parts becomes the resolution, and as such is carried. Continuing in the theme of leisure and open space and all those sorts of things, 11.2.2 contract extension, Belgravia Health Leisure Group Proprietary Limited. CEO Solomon, could we please have a summary of this report?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Belgravia Health and Leisure Group, or known as Belgravia Leisure, have been successfully managing our council aquatic facilities, or pools as most community recognise them by, since the 2020-2021 season. At the September 2021 council meeting, Belgravia awarded a 3-year contract with the option of 2 further single-year extensions, subject to satisfactory performance and the agreement by both parties. Under Belgravia's leisure management, council's pools have vastly improved with their expertise in the field and strong focus on safety and risk management. This season, that's the 2023-24 season, saw the conclusion of that initial 3-year term. Officers have since conducted a performance review with Belgravia Leisure, considered the feedback from the Friends of the Pools, and recommend council enact the first of the 1-year contract extensions. It's important to note, though, Chair, that the proposed fee to extend services for the 2024-2025 season is $452,893. It is higher than the contracted indicative sum based in 2021 of $359,972.68. Officers recognise that the costs of delivering services have increased significantly over the past 3 years and agree that the leisure industry cost escalations as proposed by Belgravia Leisure are justifiable. There is a recommendation on page 25 for your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Solomon. And yeah, when I first looked at this report, I thought, yeah, it's a few dollars. You know, it's a bit more than what we expected. But I think we're seeing in all endeavours at the moment that costs are just escalating. And then when you look at the drivers for the cost increases of the pool, staff training and recruitment costs up 80.5%. The fact that there's got to be 2 staff all the time to be, you can't just get away with 1. Got to have 2 staff all the time, which is fair enough. And that's probably how we got to that 90-something% of safety by doing that. And minimum shift requirements of 3 hours under the awards. Which I support as well. We don't want people not being paid or treated outside of the conditions they should be, and getting breaks and all that sort of stuff. And the other main driver there was, and I was shocked, but well, surprised but not shocked, I should say, that they've had to bring people up from metropolitan Melbourne to fill in shifts at times, and well, more than at times, quite a lot, and that's I know too well that can cost when you relocate for a day or 2 a week. So, whilst it's not, you don't like to see those increases, it's fully explainable, and I doubt that I'd get out of town alive if the pills didn't continue, at least with the kind of at least the hours that are recommended in this report. So I think we just got to suck it up. They've done a good job from all indicators. They're how would you say, committed to continuing to do a good job for us, and let's just hope that the drivers for cost increases begin to diminish over time, so that we don't see this bill shock every year, if you like. But I'm comfortable that staff have done their due diligence in getting a reasonable outcome here under the circumstances. So the recommendation on page 25 is that the Chief Executive Officer is authorised to approve the single-year extension for the 4 pools at the cost that's listed there. I'm happy that becomes the resolution, and as such, it's carried. And we swim again, or we continue to swim when the weather gets better. It's funny about thinking of swimming when it's almost the winter solstice. But there you go. So moving now to infrastructure, 11.3.1, tender for contract number 2324-56, Drysdale Road Bridge Abutment Replacement. Director Harvey, could you please give us a summary of that?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, and through you, Chair. Drysdale Road Bridge in Euroa was one of a number of bridges and assets that were impacted by the floods in 2022. We've spent a considerable amount of time negotiating with the NDFA, National Disaster Relief Authority, NDRA, to get this one funded under the broader program. As a consequence, it's delayed its repairs. This report details the tender for the construction of the work to repair the structure. It was advertised on the 8th of March, closing on the 5th of April, and we received 2 tenders. A comprehensive evaluation of both of those submissions has been detailed in the attached report. It's recommended that Council award the tender to Waratah Constructions Proprietary Limited of Benalla, who interestingly was the subcontractor to Apex, who have just built the bridge on the Nagambie-Loxley Road, actually, and done a great job at that. For a total amount of $312,430.80, including GST. The works will commence in July 2024 with an anticipated completion date of August 2024. They will require the closure of Drysdale Road for a short period. However, a detour around the site utilising Nelson's Road has been established and will be used to direct the traffic around the site. The recommendation is there on page 32 for your consideration.
Thanks, Director Harvey. And yeah, one of the many pieces of infrastructure that was damaged during the flood event, and it's good to have this one at the point of being fixed. I'm comfortable with the process. I'm comfortable with the recommendation. I look forward to hearing about when this one's completed, as much as I was excited about the Loxley-Nagambie Road one today. So the recommendation on page 32 in 5 parts becomes the resolution, and as such is carried. Thank you, John. And now we move to the Capital Program Delivery Status May 2024. And Director Harvey, if you might give us a summary of this report, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. This report provides an update of the status of the delivery of the capital program to the end of May. And the end of June shall be provided once we have the fully audited accounts. This report continues to identify that up to 90% of the program will be delivered this financial year. However, it does identify a couple of key projects that won't be fully delivered, as has been forecast, and I've got them listed there. Some of them to note, however, is the Violet Town landfill refurbishment. You'll remember perhaps last meeting you approved the recommendation for some variations to the consultants to obtain that final EPA approval. That is continuing, and that funding for that will be rolled over from this financial year. We are very, very close though. One of the other ones, of course, is the toilet refurbishment at the offices here, of which, as a consequence of review of the total office refurbishment study, we've wound the scope of that back significantly, so much so that it will be reduced back to an anticipated 95,000 instead of the previous well in excess of 175,000 figure. So, there's been some considerable savings made there. The other one of note, however, is the Weir Road. So Weir Road, we actually sealed the majority of Weir Road this financial year. Unfortunately, as a consequence of some poor management on my part, the planning permit for the tree removal has limited our ability to seal that 100 metre section in between, which is unfortunate. However, I'd like to focus on the fact that we've got 2.7 kilometres of the road sealed and not just the 100 metres that's fixed. And what it does enable us to recognise is that the process of planning permit applications is not a fait accompli, and we continue to with the objector to that permit application to see what we can do to appease the objector's concerns in that regard. The recommendation based on that, as well as the list of jobs there, is on page 40 for you to note, and I offer you the opportunity to consider that recommendation.
Thanks, Director Harvey. And might I say, it's refreshing for someone to say, I got it wrong. Now, I've been in the workforce for 50 years, and I've only heard half a dozen people ever say they got it wrong, and you're one of them, John. And you know, it doesn't happen a lot. People don't, and I know Julie said when she's got it wrong. In local government, I've hardly ever heard of people say I got it wrong, and twice in my life I've heard it here. And so, you know, kudos to you for saying that, because a lot of people don't. They want to blame someone else, or they want to blame something else. So it's to your credit. Now, yes, it's disappointing that we've got the delays as we navigate the planning permit requirements. But as you say, the sealing works on the rest of the project are now done. And I'd like to thank the community for their patience. And I know it's been frustrating, if not to mention inconvenient, and particularly with Kerwin's bridge out of action. But hopefully we'll have some better news at the August council meeting. I might have a conversation offline. I note in the report that the discussion is, and I know we've spoken about this, but that because of election caretaker period restrictions, we might not be able to proceed with finishing until February next year. Yeah, that's that. Anyway, I have a chat offline about that, because I wonder, given we've tendered the project, we've said this is what we're going to do. How does it? Anyway, we'll have a conversation offline about that. I wondered how it, you know, gets caught up in that, given that it's been decided. Anyway, but I've got to say too, this report is really useful. While there's a lot of information in there, and there's a lot of charts, and there's a lot of information about. If you wanted to dig down, you could spend days reading the ancillary information. But what it does, it shows accountability. Right, this is what we said we get done. This is where we're up to. Okay, but to get to 90% of this time of the year is pretty good from what I've seen in the past here. And that's just, 2 years of floods doesn't help. But having getting to that point where you can see where we're at every month, and you can see that each month we're inching up to getting towards everything being completed. That's terrific. So that said, the recommendation on page 40 does become the resolution. The council notes the capital program delivery for May 2024 status report. That is now carried. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Moving on, 11.3.3 contracts, works, variations and grants awarded under delegation 1st to the 31st of May 2024. Okay, and we've got Director Tingay talking to this one. Could we have a summary, please, Director Tingay?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just give you quite a brief summary, but also to let you know that we do have quite a variety of contracts awarded under delegation this month. So there's the supply of ice skating rinks for a Winter Wonderland event. There's the system renewal for our open office exemption to help support our IT to make things work within our organisation and out to our community as well. Strategic land use and deliberative engagement, and also the prevention of sexual harassment training, which council staff will undertake at the end of this month. We didn't receive any quick response grants this month, nor were there any contract variations. Thank you, Chair.
Terrific. Thanks, Director Tingay. And I did note with interest and somewhat envy the supply of ice skating rinks. I just wish that I had the agility, confidence and youth to actually participate in that, because that sounds like fun. So thank you for that. The recommendation on page 44. Oh, yes. And that's right. I did have in my notes. Back again, the Winter Wonderline events. Back again by popular demand this year. Yeah, so Avenel as well as Ngambia and Euroa. Okay, so keep your eye out for booking details. I know that some Tom in the gallery and Robin in the gallery will probably want to go ice skating, sure. And I'll be there with you. The book early because the sessions, they book out very quickly. I look forward to seeing you on the ice, guys. And now I'll move that the recommendation becomes a resolution and is now carried. Thank you, Director Tingay. Now we move to Chinaman's Bridge, Ngambia Options Assessment. Director Harvey, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. In October 2022, the region experienced some major flooding, significant flooding events across the municipality, and it impacted a significant number of our assets. One of them in particular is is named and described as Chinaman's Bridge. This bridge spans across the Goulburn River, and it used to actually take the traffic from Ngambia across to Heathcote and the like. It was actually replaced and the timber structure known as Chinaman's Bridge taken out of service back in 1995. A new structure is being built and is used today, approximately 90 metres upstream of the existing structure. The 2022 flood damaged this structure such that, to the extent that, in fact, we've had to close the waterway as a consequence of the risk of falling timbers and substrate of the structure falling on those passing underneath it or close to it. And so council has been working as quickly as practicable to do an assessment of the structure and, in fact, engage Extent Heritage to prepare the associated reports and to assist us in the engagement with Heritage Victoria to actually have the bridge dealt with such that we could reopen the waterway, which is our prime objective. As a consequence of their report, based on the reports from the Heritage Conservancy, that's a hard word to say, consultant, the structural engineering report that was engaged using a Heritage Australia approved or Victoria approved structural consultant, Mark Hodkinson was the firm that they engaged to do that. A report from GMR, of a local engineer from Shepparton. The report has come to the conclusion that it recommends that the bridge be demolished with the exception of the land-based abutments as per section 11 of the report that's actually attached to the agenda. Now, this is actually described as a partial demolition, even though from perhaps the untrained observer, all of the structural elements of the bridge are removed. It is proposed to keep the earth embankments or the abutments, of which is the true connection between the land and the structure to take you across the waterway, is retained. There's a 5-point recommendation for your consideration on page 50 for you to consider, for us to continue with Heritage, Extent Heritage, to continue to negotiate with Heritage Victoria for permits and for permission to implement that recommendation to get the waterway open, and to lobby with Go-Nagambie to advocate to the state government, Department of Transport, the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action for funds to demolish the bridge as per the recommendation in their report.
Thanks, Director Harvey. And that bridge, I recall, for about 2 years as a teenager, 13 and 14-year-old, my neighbours used to take me across that bridge in the better part of the year, 6 months of the year when the weather was okay. We go across that bridge and they had a caravan and an annex on someone's property right on one of the backwaters. And we go there on a Friday night and leave on a Sunday and go home and spend the whole weekend fishing there. And I remember going across that bridge and thinking, geez, this is a nice old bridge, a bit rickety, but now that was in the 70s. 50 years on, well, yeah, it's sad that it's got to go. But for anyone who's seen it in the last little while, yeah, I dare not walk across it and I dare not go underneath it in a boat. But it's good to see now that we have a clear path forward. This report puts us in a strong position to advocate for the funding required for the urgent removal of the bridge. Yes, it'll be sad to see the end of the era for this bridge, because 1891, I believe it was constructed for something like £4,100. Like to have someone come and build something like that for £4,100 today. But given the economic impacts that the bridge, the risks to life, the economics of trying to fix it, yeah, it's got to come down. So we need to move on. We need to get that advocacy happening, and the next steps, as outlined in the recommendation, will be an important milestone for the community to get this done. So thanks to you and your team for your work and for the work of those that have been engaged to get us to this point. And I look forward to hearing the next positive juncture in this discussion. So I move that the recommendation in 5 parts on page 50 becomes the resolution and as such is carried. Thanks again, Director Harvey. So moving to 11.4.1, and that is the Council Plan Update Year 4 Actions 1 July 2024 to the 30th of June 2025. And that will be Director Tingay. Could you give us a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report recommends to Council that the updated 2021 to 2025 Council Plan Year 4 Actions, which would commence from 1 July 2024 through to the 30th of June 2025, be adopted. You might recall that back at the April 2024 Council meeting, the Year 4 Actions were endorsed to be released for community feedback. Following the feedback period, there was one submission received. The submission highlighted a small grammatical error, which has been rectified in this final version. There is a recommendation on page 59 of the agenda for your consideration, and I just wanted to quickly highlight a couple of key initiatives included in the Year 4 Actions for the Council Plan, if approved tonight. That includes the adoption of the updated rural land use and rural residential strategies, adoption of the urban growth strategy, creation of a significant tree register, and also continuing to participate in the newly established Goulburn Region Tourism Incorporated. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Director Tingay. And indeed, on page 58, those key initiatives that you began speaking about, the few there, we add to the rest of those, and that's a lot of work. But getting back to what I said earlier about the importance of plans, in there are a number of strategies, a number of plans that underpin the stuff that we do. And we're talking about planning often we're talking about development, people coming in, new people coming into different parts of the Shire. That can't happen until you get your land use strategy sorted, until you get your urban growth strategy sorted, until you understand where the water's going to flow, and drainage and all of those sorts of things. So this was a plan developed by the councils, 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago. Very valid actions, and let's hope that as many as possible of these can be achieved before the next plan is developed by the next council. But all important things to do. And yes, we only had that one submission to the consultation around the update of the plan, and that was only a grammatical issue. So no one had any issue with the substance. So with that said, good work again. On page 59, it's the recommendation in two parts. I move that recommendation become a resolution, and as such is carried. And look forward to watching from afar as some of those things are achieved by end of next June. All right, Council Policy Review 11.4.2 Draft Risk Management Policy 2024 and Draft Risk Management Framework 2024. Take a sip of water. That will help. Okay. Director Tingay, you're up again. If we might have a brief summary, please.
Thank you, Chair. Both the risk management policy and the risk management framework have been subject to a large body of water. We just spoke about water, a large body of work over the last 8 months to further progress the Council's approach to risk management. There has been a number of changes to both of these documents, and I'll just summarise those quickly. That includes the updating of the risk categories, inclusion of updated risk rating matrix, the inclusion of diagrams to clearly articulate Council's risk management governance structure, and also the clarification of roles and responsibilities. If supported by Council tonight, the adoption of this updated policy and framework will help strengthen and embed risk management into our culture and also our day-to-day operations, and will encourage proactive risk management across the organisation and Council. There is a recommendation on page 64 of the agenda for your consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Tingay. And yeah, really important report, really important work that's been done here. Some important words in the third paragraph here is that risk management is embedded in day-to-day operations. And that's at every level, because if we don't manage risk, then it can all fall over. There's a whole lot of stuff can go wrong. Where councils are in some risky businesses, building roads and bridges and culverts, but even managing staff has risks. Working officers have risks. So risks are they're social, emotional, they're financial, they're physical, and reputational. And we need to manage all of those, and having a proper framework and policy helps us to do that. And yeah, I'm very pleased with the work that has been done in the last 8 months. But I mean, a lot of work's been done in the last 8 months. Not to say that there wasn't any risk management going on before that, but really there's been a lot done, and I'm sure the Audit Committee will be pleased, because that, of course, risk is one of their major areas to focus on. So good work for the team there, and I'm happy to accept that the recommendation in 3 parts on page 64 becomes the resolution and is thus carried. And it'd be great to listen in. Well, because I will. I'll get on that. I'll get on the website and have a watch and see what happens into the future with risk and all manner of things after October, because I'll have nothing else to do. Okay, moving on. Thanks again for that team's work. Now, 11.4.3, Council Policy Review, Draft Public Art Policy 2024. And this one will be Executive Manager Scott. Could we please have a summary of this report?
Thank you very much, and through you, Chair. This policy is presented as part of the council plan and also the arts and culture strategy. So it's definitely building on that importance of plans throughout the work that we do. Council's committed to supporting the arts and culture in the Shire, and the public art has been identified as an important element of this. The policy establishes a transparent process for how we assess and make decisions about the design, placement and preservation of art in public spaces. It includes acquisition for temporary and permanent art, and also any art that's placed on council land, maintained by council, or third parties that's donated or transferred to council. So it also looks at things like vandalism, any damage that's caused to public art, maintenance, and what we do with ageing art as it ages out, basically. So basically, it's already been in operation since September 2022, following extensive community consultation at the time. It's been reviewed based on feedback from artists and the few processes that have gone through to assess public art since that was adopted, and also some community feedback and benchmarking with other councils. The changes include the introduction of an independent assessment panel, the removal of the need for a public vote, and also minor administrative changes. So the recommendation is on page 70 for your consideration.
Thanks. Thanks, Executive Manager Scott. And I love public art, except when people put stuff where they're not supposed to. But public art's really, really important. And there's a under purpose and background on page 70. I reckon that first paragraph or that first sentence is really key. Public art can form an integral part of the public domain by enhancing people's experiences and encouraging greater interaction with public spaces. And when you have good public art, it does that. It does that. I get disappointed where I hear people saying, what are councils doing wasting money on public art? But they can enhance people's lives. Public pieces of public art can enhance lives. Public art can enhance lives, and it's as important to some as a well-made road somewhere else. So I think it's really important, and I do note and want to highlight the changes in here around that removing the public vote was not to limit public participation, but as the report says, it's around integrity of the process, because there were some questions in the last, we won't mention the war, but there were some questions about a particular art piece where there was a public vote, and there was questions about whether the vote could have been manipulated. This way, there'll be an independent panel, and I think that's a good thing. And art, even if not everyone likes it, art's meant to make people discuss. And just on that, years ago in Darebin, when I was on the council there, one of my colleagues said to me, Peter, would you support me? We've got 2 choices for art in Fairfield. One's a dog and the other's something else. And the dog was Fido. It was called Fairfield Industrial Dog Object. And it was this big wooden dog right near the railway gates at Fairfield Station. And as the train went past and the gates went up, the eyes would flash and the mouth would move. Anyway, a lot of people thought this was dumb. But I tell you what, Fairfield became the place where people went and had dogs. Like everyone walking, it became a cultural phenomena there. And a lot of people didn't like it, but yeah, hell of a lot did. But whether you liked it or not, people spoke about it and they embraced the area. You know, oh, that bloody dog, or I love that dog. You know, so art is really important, whether it's something you dig or something you don't. It's part of who you are. I wasn't going to mention magpies either. Okay, all right, but very pleased to see this report. And given that, page 70, recommendation in two parts. I'm happy with that recommendation becoming a resolution and as such being carried. Thank you. Got to see that dog if you ever get a chance. Yeah. Station Street, Fairfield, it's a beauty. And, you know, people occasionally try to vandalise it, but it was hardwood, so they couldn't burn it. It was just too hard to burn. And people gave up trying to damage it and they just embraced it. It's a beauty. Anyway, moving on. We have a new policy, and I've said before I'm a policy nerd. Well, this one wasn't my idea. In fact, it was an idea of a Ngambie local resident who came to the talk to the administrator session and suggested that we develop such a policy. And I'm talking about 11.4.4, draft councillors' interaction with developers policy. And I agree with the resident. The development of such a policy is critical for good governance and transparency. And of course, we do await further information and guidance from local government Victoria. This policy demonstrates us going beyond the minimum requirements set out in legislation in registering the contact by councillors in accordance with this policy. And of course, for those that are aware, or for those that aren't aware, look up Operation Sandon, and that'll give you the genesis of this kind of discussion. You know, brown paper bags with cash and so on. Anyway, we won't go any further, but suffice to say, a resident of Ngambie suggested that we should look at a policy. We listened, and here is the draft policy. It'll go out to community consultation. It won't. No, we just okay, good-o. We just adopt this one. Well, that's good because it's a governance policy. Yes, of course. So that's a good thing. And I'm sure when the new council comes in after October, they'll probably want to review it. But that will be their right. Yes, here we go. The recommendations. We adopt the draft council interaction with developers policy and place the policy on council's website, along with the publication of a notice in council's newspaper columns and social media pages informing the community about the adoption of the policy. I knew we were telling the community. And yes, and of course that policy will also apply to officers, which is important because we must all be beyond reproach, and this it amplifies the notion that we've got to be seen to be doing the right thing as well as doing the right thing, and this is what this policy will help us with. And on page 76, it refers to there's recommendation 22 from the Operation Sand, and it talks about what IBAC recommended. We're getting out ahead of the game, and I think it's a good thing. I won't say too much more about that, except to say that I support the recommendation becoming the resolution, and as such, it is carried. All right, moving along and take another sip of water. Talking a lot tonight. Yes, here we go. New council policy, another new council policy, and we can't thank the resident from Ngambie for this one. No. Okay. And this one will be presented, if I might ask for a brief, if I might ask you to say that, for a brief summary of this report. New policy draft lease and licensing policy 2024.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The new draft lease and licensing policy will ensure that Council adopts a consistent, equitable and transparent approach when we are entering into leasing and licensing agreements of council properties that provide community benefit and in a manner that complies with the legal requirements. The scope of the policy is really just fundamentally to support council in its decision making in accordance with obligations under the Local Government Act 2020 and provides clarity on council's approach to leasing and licensing to any party. The policy supports sustainability of council's properties through the appropriate and equitable contribution towards maintenance and oversight of the facilities in line with each category of lease or license and associated agreements. The policy at this time primarily relates to the following property types: community halls and infrastructure, buildings and sheds, land, kindergartens and early years services, and property for commercial purposes. It doesn't apply at this stage to council's recreation reserves and sporting clubs. Further policy work will be developed and come back to council when that work has been undertaken. So this report is presented to council for the policy to be placed both on public exhibition for community feedback and, more importantly, for officers to engage with the relevant community groups that will be impacted by this policy for consideration and then come back to council for final adoption. Because it's new, we understand that the community groups will want the opportunity to have a say in how this can be rolled out to support not only council, but also community activities to occur in our properties and buildings. So there is a recommendation, Chair, on page 81 for your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO. And this is an important policy as well, because for council buildings have been leased and shared and occupied by various buildings occupied by various groups over the years on various terms and conditions. And I guess it's and the term equitable is used in the report. It's not fair that one gets a leg up, one group gets a leg up over another, for example, if they're doing the same thing and using the community asset. It's not fair on the community if some groups benefit more than other groups, that's not to take anything away from anyone, but we should have a level playing field, so to speak, and we should have a consistent system, a systematized approach to how we manage these assets. After all, it's the ratepayers and residents that are paying for the maintenance, initially for the construction and implementation of these, and then the maintenance of these things throughout their useful life. So it's only fair that everybody in the community has fair and equal access to those. And I've seen it before in other places where there'd be a tacit agreement with this mob. Oh, you'll be right, and you're on better terms than that one, but don't tell them. Well, that's not right. We're in 2024. The community's assets are all of the community's assets, and they should be treated with that at the forefront and managed so that people have that access. I think it's a good report. And I'm glad that it didn't attempt in this. The officers didn't attempt in this first cut to include all of the sporting recreational grounds in it, because that would have been dynamite. I mean, it would have been just too much to bite off at one. But this, you can get this community halls and infrastructure and so on, and the commercial land and the other land, the building and sheds, get that one done, and that'll be a basis to go and get the others done. And I think that's really important, that community facilities like any access to anything that the council does, it's based on a system and process, not on a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, or long-term verbal agreement that may have come into existence decades ago. So I think it's a good thing, and on that basis, I'd move that the recommendation contained on pages 81 and 82 in 4 parts become a resolution, and as such is carried. And I look forward to the feedback on this draft policy. Thank you, CEO. Now, there's another new policy. We knock up with new policies tonight, but that's every one of them's important, including this draft election signage policy. Given we've got an election coming up in October, and then likely a federal election a little time after that, and then eventually another state election and so on. So, Director Tingay, I think it's over to you to give us a little bit of a summary of this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you've mentioned, yes, this is a new policy. The draft election signage policy supports council in its ongoing drive for good governance and the importance of open and accountable conduct. The policy has been developed, as you've mentioned, to inform local, state and federal election candidates, but also our staff, that as landowner and manager, council does not allow any form of election signage on any land owned or managed by council. It is outlined in the draft policy that this position has been undertaken to ensure that there is no perception of bias or providing an unfair competitive advantage to individual electoral candidates or political parties, and as such will be removed by our authorised officers. There is a recommendation on page 88 of the agenda for your consideration this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Tingay. And yeah, I think this is an important policy. And as you said, this is to clearly say, well, to clearly demonstrate that council does not support anyone. There is no perception of bias or actual bias. We just don't want the signs on council land, and that's an important thing. We don't want unfair advantage to any candidate. We want good luck to you all, and may the best person win. Yes, important thing to do. There's quite a bit of detail in there, but essentially, this policy will dovetail, if you like, with any requirements of the Victorian Electoral Commission with the upcoming local government election and any state election, and I guess with the AEC when there's a federal election. So I'm happy for this policy to become, for the recommendation about this policy become the resolution, and that we again, we adopt this and let the community know about it in the way that's described in the recommendation on page 88. So that is carried too. And again, thanks for your work on this, Director Tingay and your team and CEO. Okay, Strathbogie Shire Council Audit and Risk Committee confirm minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 5th of April 2024, 11.4.7. And I don't know that we need to say too much there, do we? No, I think we'll just receive and note the confirmed minutes of the committee meeting held on the 5th of April. As the recommendation lays out on page 92, that becomes a resolution and is carried. Now, 11.4.8, the Local Government Financial Professionals FENPRO submission to the Legislative Council Economy and Infrastructure Committee inquiry into local government funding and service delivery in Victoria. Imagine trying to put that on a folder, on a committee folder. But anyway, Director Tingay, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The Victorian Public Parliament Legislative Council gosh, maybe I might start again, Chair, if that's okay.
Just say the committee.
At the committee, yes, I've lost my words this evening. It's been a long week and it's only Tuesday. So they are currently accepting public submissions to the inquiry into local government funding and service delivery in Victoria. The inquiry is assessing local government's ability to deliver core services and the effects of cost shifting from state and federal governments to local councils. The Local Government Finance Professionals, affectionately known as FinPro, a not-for-profit incorporated association, is the peak body servicing local government finance professionals in Victoria. They have made a submission to the inquiry, and quite a lengthy submission at that, which is attached to the council agenda tonight. It was undertaken by consultancy firm the AEC Group, and it found a number of recommendations that address financial sustainability issues and also to promote collaboration and advocate for fair funding mechanisms for local government. Essentially, FinPro noted, as I said, a number of recommendations. More just succinctly, there was 8 recommendations that I'll quickly just go through, which was really around establishing a risk-based assessment framework for financial sustainability with criteria set for different council cohorts, requiring the Essential Services Commission to calculate a local government cost index when advising the minister on rate caps. We know recently that the rate cap has not been reflective of CPI. The Essential Service Commission considers adjustments to historic rate caps insufficient to meet indexation, as I said, of local government costs. Establish a more detailed report for assets to ensure transparency in reporting and capacity to fund maintenance and capital investments. Re-engaging with a collaborative model similar to the Victorian statewide local government agreement of 2014, recognising the financial challenges faced by local governments, including a significant difference in rate caps between Victoria and New South Wales, and addressing the constraints on local government revenue growth compared with Commonwealth and Victorian governments, and noting the decrease in the financial assistance grants, which for us as a small local council does hit us hard as a percentage of total Commonwealth government taxation revenue, impacting our funding. So there is a recommendation for you tonight on page 96 of the agenda, where we're seeking council support to note and support the submission made by FinPro, but also in addition for officers to make a submission to the committee, obviously supporting FinPro's submission. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Tingay. And it is important to note from FinPro's submission that the current revenue structures for local government do place the sector in a difficult financial position and reduces the capacity of local government to support the living standards which Victorian communities now expect from local councils. In particular, the reduction in government grants, along with local government municipal rates not increasing in line with economic growth, is placing significant pressure on local government's ability to operate a viable service. And 80% of local government revenue can be attributed to the two streams, rate and grants. FinPro further state that since 2016-17, which was when the Fair Go rating system began, the rate cap has resulted in a cumulative increase of 15.43% in revenue compared to a possible local government cost index increase of 22.93% in costs. So there's that, well, the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. Well, this is the other way, compound when you don't get the money, that compounding deficit. And the local government cost index is a measure of the change in the cost of goods and services purchased by local government over time, and includes indices such as CPI, wage price index, and road and bridge construction index. But interestingly, you know, a lot of people talk about CPI, and CPI is, you know, supposedly a basket of, you know, a basket from the supermarket, you know, with bread and milk and this and that. But councils don't buy that. What councils buy goes up a lot faster than your bread and milk. And so we always sort of, if CPI is one of the measures we're getting funded on, we're always going to be behind. And the other thing is that taxation revenue for local government over the last 5 years has really fallen short. You know, while Commonwealth government increased by 31%, state government increased by 34%. Local government has increased 16%, you know, in 5 years. And again, like, tell me how we can buy sand and screenings and timber and plaster and paint, just looking at the maintenance side of things. They're keeping that in the 2.5% band or the 3% band that 16% over 5 years tells you. So as a small rural council, we rely heavily on external grant funding to ensure we can deliver services and infrastructure to our community. But this lack of support, and in fact this diminishing support, places further pressure on the organisation to deliver a variety of services to our community. So I think it is imperative that we do support this submission made by FinPro, Local Government Finance Professionals, to that Legislative Council committee. I'm not going to try and read it out again. And it's important that we support all and every reasonable advocacy initiative to ensure that we get our fair share of the taxation pie. And I think it was mentioned the other day, and I used or I think we used that figure tonight. It was mentioned at the Stanford Council session the other night that of every dollar that is collected in taxes in Australia, only 3.6 cents of that goes to local government. So, yeah, it ain't great. So the recommendation on page 96 is now the resolution, and as such is carried, and thank you for your work. And thank you to FinPro and their submissions. So now to 11.5.1, updated Strathbogie Shire Council governance rules. And we have Director Tingay again. Would you like to give us a quick summary as a governance person?
I will. Thank you, Chair. At the April 2024 Council meeting, Council endorsed the release of the governance rules for community engagement as required under the Local Government Act. At the closing of submissions on the 15th of May, 5 submissions were received, and there were quite a number of comprehensive submissions made as well. There's a bit of a summary of the submissions that we received commencing on page 103 of tonight's agenda, and also a response to whether or not the submissions have been included in the draft governance rules. I just want to highlight that since the release of our draft governance rules back in April, we have made further amendments to the document. That particularly relates to changes to the election period policy. The amendments prepared by Council's lawyer enable the organisation to conduct business more effectively during what's affectionately known as the caretaker period. And in addition, for completeness, any restrictions relating to a member of council staff running as a candidate will be covered in council staff Code of Conduct CEO directive. In addition, the Victorian Electoral Commission indicate that you cannot be a candidate if you are a member of staff of the council. Officers can take leave from their role in the order to nominate. However, given that we have subsequently made additional amendments since the draft has gone out, and as the election period policy is incorporated in the governance rules, and there is a requirement under the Local Government Act to conduct community engagement should there be an amendment to the governance rules, we are requesting from you tonight that Council endorse the release again of the Strathbogie Shire Council governance rules for broad community fee consultation for a period of 28 days commencing tomorrow. The updated amended draft of the governance rules does incorporate the feedback, as I said earlier, accepted from the initial community engagement period that closed on the 15th of May. There is a recommendation on page 102 of the agenda tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Tingay. And the governance rules are just so important and dynamic. And whilst it's, I suppose it's not ideal to be adopting changes on the same night as sending out to the community for more feedback on other changes, that is how dynamic the sector is. And given, as you said, Director Tingay, given the changes to the election period this year, well, we just have to, and we have to do it as soon as we can. And so it's tonight. But I think it's well done to those in the community that studied this, obviously with the eyes like a hawk or a pedant in some cases, and really gave us some food for thought. And where we thought it was practical and necessary and not contrary to anything else, and the right thing to do, then those changes are reflected. Where there were probably some suggestions that good suggestions but redundant because it didn't belong there or belong somewhere else, then they're not included. But every suggestion made was taken at face value and discussed and debated, and well done for that community input there. And we look forward to a similar level of community input each and every time the governance rules are updated, as we need to do. So page 102 has the three-part recommendation, including adopting the sending out again. So we note the first lot of consultation, and now we send out again for the next lot. So the recommendation there becomes the resolution and is carried. And again, thanks CEO and Director Tingay for your work on that, because I know it's been quite diligent and how would you put it? You've had to look at things with the eyes of hawk as well, as much as anybody else in the community has done in their feedback. Okay, now we're over to the monthly performance report. Is there anything that you wish to highlight?
Just very quickly through you, Chair. Very busy month in Ngambie with the building activity at nearly 4 million for the month of May. And also just want to highlight on page 122, the organics contamination rate is continuing to trend back down again, nearing the figures that we had in October 2023. So it's good to see that that trend is going down from a spike that we had earlier in the year. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Director Tingay. And I hope that I can't see it there, but I hope in the months to come I'll see the amount of fabrics and materials will rocket since our work down there at the transfer station a few weeks ago. Yes, I'll leave that there. I did catch the little piece. I never like seeing myself or hearing myself. Anyway, there you go. Thankfully, Sean was there to do most of the shoveling of the clothes. All right. We have no notice of. Oh, did I adopt that? Yes, I did. Well, if not, I move that the recommendation becomes the resolution and is carried. So thank you for the performance report, all teams that contributed to it. Notice of motion and nil. Notice of rescission. I haven't changed my mind on anything. No urgent business. No confidential business. So the next meeting is an extraordinary meeting, and it will be an extraordinary meeting because it will be Julie Sullivan's last as CEO, and that's scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 25th of June. Is it here? Yeah, it is here. commencing at 6 p.m. And the meeting is for the adoption of the 2024 budget, fees and charges, and declaration of rates and charges for the 12 months ending 30 June 2025, and pitch my project recommendations for funding. And the next ordinary meeting is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 16th of July 2024, at the Nagambie Lakes Regatta Centre, commencing at 6 p.m. So there'd be nothing else. I'll close the meeting now at 7:50 on the dot. Thank you, everybody.